we'll round off the paper review with Mr. and Mrs. Associate Mr. Toye. But let's look at take the review now.
Thank you very much. Our hearts must go out to the people of Fadan Karishe in Kaduna State, where late in the night they had attack and they lost about 50 people. The villages involved are Fadan Karishe and Fadan Karishe Daji and Ongwerganye. Also, to that, added to that is that our hearts must also go out to the authorities of the Federal College of Education in Kano. For a period of about 2.5 months now, we have had no instances of bomb blast. Particularly, if you recall, incidents of suicide bomb were last heard in Kano, and it appears as if security authorities have had control over it. And all of a sudden, yesterday we have these incidents where gunmen went into the college and started shooting sporadically, and 2 suicide bombers went into lecture halls and detonated bombs. Unfortunately, they've killed 15 students, a lecturer, and I think an infant. We must caution why there is need to report these stories. Some of our colleagues, particularly some newspapers, are posting photographs that apparently is disrespect for the dead there, and it's not proper. I think we shouldn't even acknowledge it by showing it. It's very much in bad taste, and I think we should be circumspect about this fact. We shouldn't disrespect the dead, particularly in the circumstances for which they have been killed. The other story also trending is the issue of the successes of our soldiers in Konduga. There are conflicting reports. Some newspapers report as many as 400 insurgents were killed. Others report about 200. But if you recall, we mentioned that the soldiers from the 3rd Armored Brigade in Jos were having their activities around those areas. And the insurgents were trying to retake Konduga following the last loss they had. And that was where they suffered these critical losses. And the encouraging thing about this all is that the soldiers attested to the cooperation they have received from the people, and that is helping. And therefore, if all hands are on deck, we give the required support to the soldiers, we think we will be able to get rid of this insurgency. Whether we like it or not, it must dawn on everybody. The nation is at war.
Okay, Kingsley, you have the next set of papers.
Yes, I'll quickly take the nation, briefly also the leadership and the Newswatch. Those are the 3 papers I have. But the story that you are likely to find on the front pages of most of the papers, if not all the papers that we have, well, I'm taking the nation immediately now, but the story you are likely to find, we'll have to go inside, it has to do with the school resumption date. There's some conflict over that, but let's quickly take the nation now. The nation, the lead story, of course, also has to do with the incidents in Kano and Kaduna. Gunmen, suicide bomber, killed 65 in Kano and Kaduna. 15 students die in college, that's in Kano, and 50 feared dead in village attack. Just above the nameplate of the nation, just above the nameplate of the nation, is a story that says PDP governors endorse Jonathan, and then primaries for December 6th, and also there are some promotional copies there. On the news, Clark attacks president's rivals. Echejile excited with UEFA win, and business, Nigeria EU trade hits 8.5 trillion naira. And then, of course, the front page photograph of the nation is taken also from the war front in the northeast, where there was a display of the armored vehicle, one of the armored vehicles captured from the insurgents. Below that, of course, is the story that has to do with the synagogue building collapse. South Africa sends team as synagogue death toll hits 80. And Lagos begins probe. Church quiet on Zuma's claim, and search may end today. As I said earlier, what you're unlikely to find on the front page, I'll just read out 2 headliners from page 8 of the Nation. Kwara and Ondo direct schools to open on Monday. Monday, of course, is the 22nd of September. And just below that is a story that says, will not resume, say Lagos and Ekiti, NUT. And below that is another story that says, Niger postpones date to October the 10th. Those are the stories from the inside paper on school resumption. Of course, for those who are interested in political stories, you can also go to page 8 there, where the former governor of Ogun State is having a shouting match, as it were, with the incumbent. Daniel, that is Benga Daniel, not from Ogun, says Amosun, who is the incumbent. And the writer, it's all lies, says ex-governor. And very quickly now, we go on to the Daily News Watch. Daily News Watch, of course, also give the front line, the headline story there is on the attack in Kano and Kaduna. 65 killed in Kano and Kaduna attacks. And also on the front there is death toll in synagogue, church Saturday, now 70. Nema disputes South Africa's figure. And insecurity, Sultan to lead other northern rulers to president. On the front page of the paper, of course, is a photograph also of the captured armored vehicle from the insurgents. PDP governors, the second lead story. PDP governors endorse Jonathan as sole candidate. And fresh sea arrow hike expected as MPC meets today. MPC stands for Monetary Policy Committee. And then Thunder throws Abuja into darkness. Details to be found on page 2. Bayo Atoyebi already talked about some of the photographs that are in bad taste. So we'll not go into some of the one or two of the front pages that displayed some of the bodies, from the incident in Kano yesterday. The last paper that I have, of course, is leadership. We'll go inside the paper for leadership, page 4. Let's take page 4 of leadership. Page 4 for leadership. Page 4, mutiny. That's the story. That's the kicker there. It's too early for Jonathan to intervene. And there are two riders there. Ex-GOC 7th Div, that is the former general officer commanding the 7th Division, not retired, that says Defense Headquarters. And Army foil attack on Koduga. And there are a number of copies there on Ebola on page 4. These are brief stories. Ebola, Nigerians raise alarm over porous borders. And no teacher should demand clearance certificate. That's federal government. And federal government approves 200 million naira for Rivers State. Of course, there's also a brief there. Dimba Igwe, that's the late vice chairman of the Sun Newspapers, for burial on October the 11th. Claire?
Okay, let's quickly run through the papers I have. The last set, the union is leading with PDP governors endorse Jonathan for 2015. The union leads with PDP governors endorse Jonathan for 2015 has a rider as party hosts presidential primary December 6. And again, it has a picture story of the armored vehicle there recovered from insurgents and other trending stories on the front page. But mutiny, convicted soldiers appeal death sentence. 50 lawyers to defend appeal free. It's also trending on the front page there. Now, People's Daily, it also leads with a similar story. 2015, PDP governors adopt Jonathan sole candidate. Party primaries hold November 29 and December 6. That's the lead story on the front page of the People's Daily. And it has soldiers kill 450 insurgents in Borno, repel attacks, seize weapons, hardware. And FCE, that's Federal College of Education, Kano explosion kills 13, injures 34, and 55 killed in Kaduna attack. That's the People's Daily. And New Telegraph leads with troops killed 450 in Borno. That's a similar story. It writes with Boko Haram slays Adamawa's governor's uncle. And it also has a lead story just below the masthead there. Presidency intervenes in all workers' strike. Reps summon Alison Madueke, that's the minister. Losses to strike rise to 35.8 billion naira. And just to go back to People's Daily, just to point out, controversy over schools, embassies demand for Ebola certificates. It's on the front page of the People's Daily. But let me quickly take Business Day now, finally, Mr. Toyebe. Yes. Business Day has quite a couple of business stories, but at the front page, it's leading with energy firms seeing raising equity capital to moderate debt. It has a rider there. But I just take you to the Insight page on page 5, I think, in just a moment. Okay, on page 5, there are quite a number of stories. One is AFDB, that's African Development Bank, approves $1 million grant for Nigeria to fight Ebola. And FDI's inflows to Nigerian economy reach $963 million in the first half. Okay, 80 million Nigerians without electricity, that's according to UN. Okay, those are my papers, Mr. Toyebe.
Thank you very much. I think I must commend the in-depth content exploration of 13 newspapers that you have been able to carry out in so few minutes. However, the update, synagogue, we reported yesterday that the death toll was 67, but between that time and now, they discovered 17 more dead bodies, unfortunately, bringing the death toll to 80. What seemed like a controversy is that South Africa is saying that 67 of its nationals are among the dead. But NEMA has said, well, what they did was they retrieved bodies from the rubble. They don't know their nationalities. It is left for them to sort those ones out at the hospitals. However, South Africa has sent in experts to certify the identity of the persons through DNA. And the South Africa is also claiming that from 4 and 5 group tours who organized the visit, there were up to about 300 South Africans who were actually in Nigeria at that synagogue premises. Some of them have already returned home. The issue of resumption, October 22nd, like September 22nd. Yes, Kwara Ondo has agreed to resume that day. Niger has indicated that they will resume October 10th. And the NUT in Lagos and Ekiti are indicating that except and on condition that certain things are provided, they will not allow their teachers to resume. The whole thing is about Ebola, and as at today, and in fact for the last 1 week, there has not been any Ebola incident in Nigeria. And as at the last count, 517 people have been monitored and apparently cleared of Ebola. There is nobody with Ebola virus. Also, the 200 million, like was given to Lagos, has also been remitted to Rivers State government. And so, the issue of resumption in schools is now becoming a contention now between different state ministries of education. Don't forget that before the decision was reached, there was a general meeting between the commissioners of health and the commissioners of education before that collective decision was reached. The other issue is mutiny. Mutiny is a very critical issue, but aside from this death sentence, those who have been so convicted have the avenues of appeal. First, to the Chief of Army Staff. Secondly, to the Army Board, which is chaired by the Minister of Defense. And also, they have the right to go to the Court of Appeal and possibly also to the Supreme Court. And so those are, and at the matter of last resort, they can also plead for clemency through the office of the Commander-in-Chief, which is Mr. President. Don't forget that there was an incident in Ondo State when soldiers returning from foreign service also were caught in a tuggle about mutiny. At the long run, I think the death sentence were also commuted. But in wartime situation, mutiny is treated very, very strictly. By the end of today, Scotland may not agitators around the world, even including Australia, who are seeking for self-determination. If it is no, well, we will see to what extent it will consolidate the United Kingdom. But it is just a fact that the issue of whether Scotland should be independent and be a nation of its own or still remain between the United Kingdom has become a subject of referendum, yes or no. And if you recall, the issues of the National Assembly here, there are proposals that it should also go to a referendum, yes or no.
Very well. Well, Bayo, that's the much we can take from you because of this review segment. But just before we leave, just for 1 second, I'm sure a number of us saw the video that was released by the synagogue church after the building collapsed. I watched it, you know, on my handset, and what I saw, I mean, the building just came down. It pancaked, as it were, into rubble. It was a building under construction. One of the questions I've been asking myself is, were there still occupants while the building was, while the building was under reconstruction, as it were? Were there lodgers in there? Because if there were about 5 or 6 floors, how come we're having so many numbers? Or were they just workmen who were on the side? Pretty sad incident.
Apparently,
within a few seconds.
Apparently, it will appear to be so. But already the Lagos State government says they have set about investigation panel. Standard Organization of Nigeria is investigating the quality of material use. The Council of Registered Engineers in Nigeria also sent their team. They are trying to investigate to put all things in perspective. Let's wait for their report and we'll be able to know the context of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bayo Atoyebe. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll go into our principal topic for conversation this morning.
An Ebola virus epidemic in some West African countries. The Nigerian government wants you to be aware and watch out against the spread of Ebola in your community. Help keep our country safe. Refer anybody coming into Nigeria from any other West African country to a hospital for proper medical screening. And watch out for severe cases of fever, headaches, diarrhea, chest and abdominal pain, sore throat, cough, red eyes, and bleeding from the eyes, ears, and nose. Protect yourself. Wash your hands regularly with soap and sanitizer. Avoid contact with the blood, urine, feces, or saliva of animals like bats, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, or infected persons. The Ebola virus is deadly. Don't catch it. Don't spread it. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
Nigeria, we the people decree that the power of evil secrecy shall fail.
All Nigerians should understand that a divided Nigeria can only mean catastrophic consequences for the entire black race.
We all African countries count on you, and you're our beacon of hope.
That when Nigeria sneezes, all of us will catch hold.
All of us who look to Nigeria for lessons and inspiration never cease to thank God for this wonderful gift to Africa.
Nigeria enjoys the respect, the admiration, the friendship, and the hope of an entire continent.
The powerhouse of Africa.
Nigeria.
Unite and build Nigeria.
God bless Nigeria.
A message from protectors of Nigeria.
Begin your day. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's commence our discussion this morning. Now, Section 308 of the 1999 Nigerian Constitution precludes anybody from instituting suits against the president, vice president, state governors, and their deputies until they leave office. Now, the provision attracted debate among Nigerians, especially when late President Musa Yar'Adua indicated his intention to get the section expunged from the Constitution. And the reason for this is to allow a level playing ground for all Nigerians in the scheme of things. Although that provision has been long in existence in our Constitution, the agitation for its removal or amendment heightened under the present democratic dispensation. And recently, the National Conference recommended the removal of the immunity clause for unnecessarily protecting elected officers. Kingsley.
Very well, Claire. It's been a contentious subject matter, as you rightly indicated in the introduction. Since the 1999, since the birth of the Fourth Republic in 1999, especially with what transpired in the first 2 years of that democratic experience. But we have with us this morning a learned senior advocate of Nigeria, Barrister Hassan Liman, who is here to discuss this subject matter with us. Barrister Liman, senior advocate, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, gentlemen.
Okay, let's take a historical view of things first. So for the benefit of our viewers, Section 308 of the Constitution, as amended, deals with the immunity clause, as my colleague Claire has said. That section is similar to a provision also that we had in the 1979 Constitution. And even though the 1979 Constitution was in operation for only 4 years and 3 months before the Second Republic was overthrown by the military on December 31st, 1983, we find that During the pendency of that constitution, we didn't have a kind of agitation that we're having now for expunging that particular section on immunity from the 1979 constitution. What, in your opinion, has accounted for the agitation? I mean, virtually since 1999 or say since year 2000, there's been a huge clamor. Retain, no expunge. What accounts for this?
If you look at it critically, the section on immunity dates as far back as the time we started our independence. In fact, the provision has been there. It did not only start with the 1979 Constitution. In fact, in all the constitutions that we had in this country, there were provisions relating to immunity. The question is, what is the rationale behind the insertion of the immunity clause for elected office holders, that is the president, vice president, governor, and deputy governors? It is because it is expected that while they are serving their tenure of office, they are not expected to be distracted by unnecessary processes, issuance of processes, or attempt to distract them or attempt to harass them while they are in office. Like you said, between 1979 and 1983, there has not been any agitation for the removal of the immunity clause. My take on this is perhaps relating to the kind of culture of impunity by, perhaps I would say, the political office holders, as opposed to those that were elected in the early dispensation, the Second Republic. I should not be understood to be saying that those that are currently serving their tenure or those that came into office from 1999 to date abuse the Constitution. No, that is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying in essence is that people are looking at it from the point of view that political office holders today, instead of adhering and keeping strictly to the oath of office, some of them, with the greatest respect, are abusing the oath of office. And that is why, hiding under the clause of immunity, that's why some Nigerians or people generally are saying, look, let us remove this immunity from the Constitution, and then we'll have them prosecuted.
Sorry, before we even look at the removal or not, let's still look at the merit of the clause, the inclusion of that clause. It's defined those that this provision applies, the president, vice president, deputy governor, and governor.
Yes.
But again, we have other elected officers who perform very strategic roles to people of this country. What about the ministers? What about local government chairmen? What about other very highly placed political officers? Why is it restrictive to this category of political officers?
If you look at it strictly from the constitutional perspective, only president, governor, deputy governor, and vice president exercise what we call executive powers, going by the provisions of our Constitution. The ministers exercise the powers of the president on the instruction or directive of the president. Equally, the commissioners exercise executive powers on the directive of the governors or deputy governor. So whatever is done by a minister or by a commissioner is deemed to have been done by a president or by a governor, because they are his appointees. He can appoint, he can fire and hire and fire them at his own will, subject to confirmation of their appointment by the National Assembly when he so want to appoint them. But I want to still see the rationale behind the immunity clause. The rationale behind the immunity clause is that political office holders, that is just executive people elected, president, vice president, governor, and deputy governor, are not supposed to be harassed unnecessarily by the issuance of court processes or by prosecution. But today, as we look at it,
Can they be investigated?
They can be investigated, but they cannot be prosecuted, because there are cases in this country in which the question arose as to whether or not a governor while in office or a president while in office can be investigated, especially in between 1999 to 2003, specifically in the case involving the then governor of Plateau State, Chief Joshua Dare. In fact, the EFCC then attempted to charge Chief Joshua Dare along with some bank officials in Kaduna Federal High Court. The question that arose for determination is whether or not he can be compelled to appear before the court in view of the provision of Section 308. The court in Kaduna held that no processes can be taken against him because he enjoined the immunity. The immunity is not for the person, the immunity is for the holder of the office while he is in office.
Okay, permit my very mundane questions or very basic questions. I need to get clarification on this.
Yes.
If they can be investigated, what is the objective? After investigation, what happens if they can't be prosecuted?
They can be prosecuted immediately they leave office. Because if while in office you commit any act of corruption or fraud, or you commit any criminal act while in office, as you are in office, you cannot be prosecuted within the period that you are serving your tenure of office. But 1 minute after the expiration of your tenure, you can be picked or arrested and be prosecuted for the offenses you have committed.
I'm sorry, you know why I'm asking this? Yeah, because because I know there is another section of the Constitution that talks about impeachment, that provides for the impeachment of these officers. And once that is done, those officers are made to vacate their office.
I'm sorry,
yes.
No, Claire.
Yes.
We'll probably be conflating two issues. There's a way they are related, but let's exhaust the question of immunity first, and then we'll come back again to its relationship to impeachment and removal from office.
Okay.
Just to buttress what the learned senior advocate has said about investigation.
Yes.
We all recall between 1999 and 2003, the then governor of Lagos State, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had a matter that arose as to his qualifications, which people then popularly refer to as the Chicago case. The Court of Appeal held that, yes, a governor who is covered by Section 308 can, in fact, be investigated. It arose from that particular case. But let's again drive on the road of Section 308. Yes, you have stated the rationale so that the holder of those particular offices, just 4 offices, yes, don't get distracted from their function. What we have found in general is that since 2003, when we have had the first set of persons, some amongst them who are covered ordinarily by that immunity clause have left office, there have been very few successful prosecutions in cases where there were, grounds for prosecution, as it were. In other words, what I'm driving at is this. Is it necessarily a question of immunity or the efficacy of the criminal justice system?
You see, now you are bringing into fore the question as to whether our criminal justice system is effective or not. I want to say with the greatest respect, we have sufficient penal legislation to punish offenders that commit any crime in our legislation. But why are we having this problem of not being able to successfully prosecute those that commit offenses? Either they are covered by immunity or they are not covered by immunity. It boils down to the fact of our inability to push to conclusion successful investigation and the political will to really prosecute those that have committed crime against the state. If now you are a political office holder, a governor or a deputy governor, a president or a vice president, you commit a crime or commit act of corruption while in office, looting of the public treasury, and the legislature, which you say we should not go in, is unable under Section 143 for the president, under Section 188 for the governor to impeach and then bring that person to book immediately. They wait for you, and 1 minute or a day after they pick you, you are successfully prosecuted. All this agitation for the removal of the immunity clause may not be there. So it all boils down to our collective responsibility as a nation, as individuals, as those that are charged with the responsibility of investigating and prosecuting those that commit crime against the state. Those charged with that responsibility must be up to their responsibility to ensure that they bring perpetrators of crime to book immediately they leave public office. We may not continue to have those kind of problems.
We'll return again, Claire. We'll return again briefly to the efficacy of our criminal justice system. But let's look at the other side of it. We have also heard or seen agitations, for instance, from lawmakers to also be provided with immunity. That is according to the letter of the Constitution, if amended, provide us with immunity. But in actual fact, is it not necessarily the case that lawmakers, are virtually immune from either arrest, investigation, or prosecution under our current criminal justice system as is?
No, you see, like I said, what is the rationale? We still boils back to the rationale of immunity. Yes. The legislatures are not exercising any executive function. Their duty solely is to make law for the good order and governance of the country. That is simply their primary responsibility. What immunity are they asking? They are not carrying out or executing any law that they have promulgated. They are not responsible for the issuance of contract. They are not responsible for supervising any executive responsibility. That executive responsibility, especially in ensuring the enforcement and compliance with all the laws of this country, is the responsibility of the chief executive. That is the president, the vice president, the governor, or the deputy governor. So if it is there his sole responsibility, he has so much responsibility, so much power, so much responsibility, so much duty on him as a president or as governor, then why should the legislature be clamoring for immunity to provide when their sole duty is to legislate and provide laws for good governance of this country? I don't think so.
Let me ask you, do you have a personal opinion on this issue? What would be the effect, removal or retention? Would it answer the questions to the flagrant abuse of office by our political leaders? Do you have a personal opinion?
I have a personal opinion.
Removal or
my personal
retention?
opinion is that immunity clause should remain or should be retained in our Constitution. All what we are expected to do is that the institution of government that are charged with the responsibility of ensuring people are duly prosecuted immediately they leave office. They live up to their responsibility and bring those people or those perpetrators to book immediately. On the other hand as well, the legislatures, if they realize that a president or a governor, while in office, is unnecessary with the greatest respect, abusing the clear provisions of our Constitution, or is abusing non-laws, laws that are laid down for the good governance of this country, the legislatures, in respect of the president, under Section 143, have a duty under the doctrine of checks and balances to ensure that without continue keeping that person whom we may consider in inverted comma as a nuisance to the nation or to a particular state, commence a process of impeachment and remove him from office, and he's picked immediately and prosecuted. Thirdly, those that are elected must see public office. That is the governor, the vice president, the deputy governor, the president and vice president must see public office as a public trust, that they have a responsibility. And while they are in that public office, they are to uphold the letters and spirit of the Constitution which they have sworn to defend. If they have upheld to uphold it, then definitely we are not likely to have all this clamor for removal of the immunity clause. We are anticipating a situation whereby in exceptional circumstances where they commit act which is not deliberate, then you don't distract them with court processes. If that is done, definitely we are likely to have a situation whereby this clamor for immunity may not arise. And you see, it is only in Nigeria and perhaps in some countries that we are clamoring for removal immunity. And it is only in, as far as immunity is only in respect of national laws of this country. If you commit a crime against the international law, for instance, if you are a president or you are a governor, under the statute of the International Criminal Court of Justice, to which Nigeria is a signatory, what is called the Rome Statute, if you commit any crime of genocide, aggression, or crime against humanity while occupying the office of president or a governor, it is the individual that is picked. And that individual, even if he's a president, warrant of arrest can be issued against him by the International Criminal Court. He will not claim immunity under our Section 308 of our Constitution.
Very well, distinguished, learned senior advocate Liebman.
Yeah.
You were referring to ICC, not
yes,
ICJ.
ICC. I mean, ICC, International Criminal Court. ICC.
ICC. That's the Rome Statute. Yes.
The Rome Statute.
We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll continue with this conversation.
Of respect for the rule of law, internal party democracy, compliance with regulations on party finance, campaign, and election day, as well as post-election issues. It emphasized the need for adhering to the rules of the game in political competition, focus on issues rather than on personalities, especially in the candidate and party campaigns, and the need to promote and strengthen inter as well as intra-party dialogue as key elements in our collective effort to build more secure and credible electoral processes and subsequently stabilize the nation.
Okay.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria, and we are discussing again the question of the immunity clause, section 308 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, to retain or to expunge. And our takeoff point from this conversation, of course, has to do with one of the many recommendations of the National Conference, which has already submitted this report. I'll go over now to my colleague Claire, to pop a question that will be of interest to our viewers.
I asked the senior learned advocate the relationship between the impeachment clause in our Constitution and the immunity clause, because you find the National Assembly applying this clause, in a situation where an elected official, the governor, for instance, has been found wanting and he's removed from office. So I'd just like you to, educate us more on that.
You see, Section 143 deals with the issue of removal from office of the president. Yes. While Section 188 deals with the issue of removal of a governor from office. That is what is termed the impeachment provisions. In these provisions, if a president or a governor commit act of gross misconduct, it may be violation of the Constitution. It may be that he has committed certain corrupt practices. In most cases that you see, especially in the attempt or in the governors that were removed or attempt to remove some governors, most of the allegations are allegations of corruption. Because all this clamor for removal of immunity clause stem from this issue that the governors or the president, as the allegation is going around, are always committing acts of corruption while they are sitting as president or governors. The legislatures, as I said, under the Constitution, have a duty. They have been elected by the people to represent the people. If the people are complaining that these people have really abused their office, the legislatures have to rise to the occasion, bring impeachable allegations against the president or against the governor.
What happens to the section of the Constitution, 308 now, which stipulates that no civil or criminal proceedings shall be instituted or continued against the person to whom this section applies during his period of office?
Yes, the provisions still remain. The proceedings, the proceedings relating to impeachment, as it is stated in the Constitution, is a special procedures which is not the same as other criminal or other civil procedures. Okay. It is a special procedures. In fact, the provision relating to the impeachment said, notwithstanding the provision of Section 308, a governor or a deputy governor, a president or a vice president, if he has been accused of act of gross misconduct, can be summoned, can be served the necessary impeachment notices, and can be served with impeachment notices, and then a panel of investigation will ensure that he appear before them and defend himself. That is a special proceeding for the purposes of defending himself while in office in impeachment proceedings. That is to determine whether or not he can continue, he can remain in office or not, or whether he has committed those acts of impeachment. That is not to be understood from the point of view that he is facing a formal criminal or civil procedures. No, there are two kinds of situations.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it's very simply clear. I know that. I mean, it's a point that a number of viewers have also been asking. Just to emphasize what the learned senior advocate is saying, Section 308 of the Constitution does not operate to save any person covered by Section 308 from the operation of sections 143 or 188. As he said, as he rightly observed, those provisions 143 and 188, those provisions are sui generis. They are quite unique. But let's look at the other side. Yes, you have stated your position that you are for the retention, but there are also persons who say, look, the provision of Section 308 should be expunged. That's of course one of the recommendations of the National Conference. I'm just wondering, of course lawyers are trained to look at both sides of a matter. If, assuming we will say, okay, expunge Section 308, will expunging that section alone be sufficient? I ask this question against also the background. I know that there's a recommendation on that as well. You expunge Section 308. In the meantime, the Constitution also provides for the office of the Attorney General of the Federation. Yes. And of course, the Attorney General, by the provisions of the Constitution of the Federation and of a state, has a right to institute, to withdraw, discontinue criminal proceedings, or any proceedings for that matter. If we still have an Attorney General who is a Minister of Justice and therefore an appointee of the President, and a Commissioner for Justice, and also the State Attorney General, who is an appointee of the Governor, can we expect any successful prosecution? Under our criminal, we have to be realistic now. This is the realism school. Can we expect the Attorney General of a state to now proceed against his appointer, or the Attorney General of the Federation, the Minister of Justice, to proceed against his appointer, who is the President?
No, you see, if you remove the immunity clause as clamored, and then a president or a governor is arraigned or prosecuted, or is arraigned before a court, we are coming back to the same issue. Distraction. Is he to concentrate on the business of ensuring that he governs this country or his state? Or are you going to distract him with going to answer for the case against him. Let me bring in this other example. For instance, under the ICC, like I said, the International Criminal Court, you can see what has happened, what has been happening to the president of Kenya, shuttling between Nigeria and the ICC simply because there is no immunity. For that period that he is away, it is enough distraction from his presidency in Kenya. So my take here is that even if you are the appointee of the president or the governor, that is as Attorney General of the Federation, or as the governor, as the Attorney General of the state, you have a constitutional responsibility to ensure that whoever has committed crime against the state is effectively prosecuted. And that is why, if you remove the immunity clause, you have a serious crisis on the hand of the Attorney General, who is the appointee of the president or the governor. You are my appointee, you are prosecuting me, we finish from the court, we come back, I fire you. You understand? But if the immunity clause is there, I am Attorney General, I know it is a no-go area for me as Attorney General of the Federation or the state. So the idea of bias on the side of the Attorney General, who will sit in his office and then go and sit in the Federal Executive Council or the State Executive Council with the President or the Governor, as the case may be, will not even be there. In fact, he may not be accused.
Okay, Leonard Senior Advocate,
yes.
The thinking of many Nigerians out there will be, what difference does it make anyway? With or without this immunity clause, we're still battling with corruption in high places among elected officials. We are still talking about bad governance, neglect in parts of the country. So shouldn't we just focus on, doing, good governance, good leadership, and waste our energy on dissipating our energy on this kind of discussion?
That is exactly what we are saying. If the institution of the state, because we have very, very beautiful institutions in this country that have been set up to combat corruption. If every person who is in that position live up to his responsibility in ensuring that whoever commits a crime against the state is charged and is brought to book, and the political office holders, with the greatest respect, provide good governance, like you said, I agree with you entirely, provide good governance, then the whole clamor for removal of immunity clause will not even be there. In fact, if you look at it with the greatest respect, in the First Republic and in the early part of the Second Republic, all this clamor for immunity clause removal was not even there. People are not even aware that there is even a provision called the immunity clause provision. It is only when the situation arises now that people are talking about immunity clause, simply because, I keep on saying with the greatest respect, those that have been elected to govern us have some questions to answer. And even after they have left office, like you said, between 1979 till date, 1999 till date, how many successful prosecutions have we carried out to ensure that those that we are accusing, because there were so many cases, so many governors were picked and charges filed against them in court that left office. Up till now, I want to think maybe apart from those that went into what we call a plea bargain, the governor of the then governor of Edo, Loki Binido, and the rest, I don't think any other person has ever been convicted. Most of them are still running about our street.
All right. Leonard, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Hassan Liman, yes. You've made a point, and we want to thank you for coming to share your views with us. And good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
This is Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA. We'll take a short break.
Jig in the water will get school uniforms whiter, and it is the tough stain fighter that will get your whites much brighter. Just Jiggins! Pot puree and lemon. Just Jiggins! Hey, you better go get it! Now available in lemon and pot puree fragrances, the newest and freshest way to Jiggins.
Have called our women because our pastoral land should be our Gaskiani. Those who are going to be farmers,
on the TV, Allah,
can't you see us in the meeting?
Wallahi, I see plenty people. Wallahi, they show you one times. I know they go show them again. Wallahi,
Musa, yeah, how TV?
Allah, on the TV.
Wonderful.
We have a total of 4,900,000 people.
I look at Wallahi, we must do our movement. Everybody must attend our town rally in North Central, Northwest, and Northeastern zone.
Yowa! I will feel cry go around the town. Wallahi, Allah, at once. Yeah, kowa zama mai gari yana gayyatar kowa da kowa a fada. Mai gari ya gaishe ku. If you are informed, ko da yaro jariri na goye a baya. Mai gari matin yi a majalisa an jima saboda ana gayyatar ku. Good luck, Jonathan. You are good luck to Nigeria.
Oh yeah, turn Northern Nigerian rallies. Ya fara sosai fa. Not Central people, not West people, not people. The town rally they will not do now. Saturday, September 13th, Saturday, September 20th, and Saturday, September 27th. Kawaii. President Goodluck Jonathan don't do us better. Wallahi, make we join other multitudes of Nigerians to thank him well and join for the demand. Turn Northern Nigerian rallies. Now we go begin rally the main rally. Well past other rallies.
Continue your good work, Nigerians support you.
This message is brought to you courtesy Transformation Ambassadors of Nigeria. Turn for one vision, Nigeria.
Yes. And then at first it was the
all right, this is Good Morning Nigeria, and we are still discussing the argument for or against the retention of Section 308 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. We have joining us right now Mr. Ola Majoegbe. Mr. Ola Majoegbe, of course, is a retired military officer, retired as a colonel. He was also in the intelligence corps, and had training both here and abroad. And he's also been a trainer of sorts of military officers, but of course is quite familiar with issues of the Constitution. Colonel Majoegbe, we would like to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Kingsley. Thank you, Claire.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, it's almost as it were an academic argument, whether or not, to retain Section 308 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. And the takeoff point for us is one of the recommendations made by the just concluded National Conference. And those recommendations, of course, have been poured over by a committee set up by the federal government. What's your take on the immunity clause? Should we have it or should we go?
First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's a great privilege for me. Then I must say that, as you already aware, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a public affairs analyst, and this is one issue which I'm very, very interested. So I listened and watched the senior advocate talk about the technicalities with incredible brilliance and professionalism. I will not be able to do that. But this matter affects every Nigerian. So I speak for the man in the street who is not a lawyer, for the market women.
We are together on this.
Yes.
We are together on this point.
Yes.
We are speaking.
I'm also a man on the street. I'm not going to exclude me.
Yes.
Two hearts.
Yes. So since it's a matter in which they are interested, I think their voice should be heard. And I would like to assign myself the position of someone speaking for the non-lawyers. For me, The immunity clause is a total waste of time. It's a waste of everybody's time. It is a legislation that has been of absolutely no effect. It's just like the law on bigamy. You know, men should not have 2 wives and all that. It's in the books. But the judges are bigamists. Everybody is a bigamist. So if the women go to court, they will be laughed out of court. In Act 1, Scene 2 of a book by William Shakespeare, a gentleman made a point that is of eternal relevance. And I like to quote him. He said, we cannot make a scarecrow of the law, setting it up to fear birds and letting it keep that shape until it becomes their perch and not their terror. What is the man saying? If you have a bogus law that has no effect, what is it doing in the books? As the son said, how many people have you convicted? I can tell you something.
After office.
Yeah, after office. I can tell you something. In those helicon days of the military, when we were doing all sorts of things, we had no duty to do. You arrest a 419 guy, you know, and he is begging you, please help me. You say, what do you mean? Charge this matter to court. Then I got curious. After some time, my colleagues and suspects were calling me a lawyer. I said, why do you want to go to court? He said, so the moment I go to court, the case is over. Because when we dupe people, we set money aside for the judges, we set money aside for the police, we call it trouble money. He said, you guys are too harsh. This is a civil affair. Charge me to court. I think it is. I do not believe that there is any elected person who is scared by whether there is immunity clause or not. The society is so corrupt. Corruption is so endemic that you can put 50 clauses. It will not bother anybody.
Has that clause served its purpose, do you think?
I do not think so. But you know why I will not advocate that it should be expunged? We will get there someday. But I doubt if it's in our generation. Maybe the generation of our children, when somebody will dust up the books and actually deal with people who are abusing their offices. As his son said, how many people have been convicted? A man was charged 200 and something charges in Nigeria.
Why do you think that that clause hasn't served its purpose?
Well,
as someone talking for the people,
I think it has not served its purpose because they say when beggars die, no comets are seen. But the heavens themselves blaze for the death of princes. It has not served the purpose because the suspects are very rich people. And those who are supposed to enforce the law are looking for money. Look at the ridiculous case. I hope it's not sub judice. A man is going to court and he takes the exact amount of money that the judge is going to pronounce. Man, I have never seen a thing like that. I think that the whole country should have stirred up a huge controversy. The man gets to court, you have find X amount of money, and he brings the money cash. Which means that there has been a collusion. The criminals are so rich. The people to enforce the law are so poor. There is no such thing as nationalism or patriotism. So you can put 100 immunity clauses. It is not serving any purpose. But as I said, I hope, I am an incurable optimist, that someday we will get there when you have some young men who will say, no, we have this clause, we are going to enforce it.
You know, I'm sorry to interject because I haven't gotten your point.
Yes.
You are not for immunity clause. At the same time, you don't want it expunged.
Yes.
It has not served its purpose. What are you telling us?
The same way the law on bigamy is still in the books.
I'm sorry, Conrad, just to interject.
Yes.
I was going to make that, I was going to give an update on bigamy.
Yes.
The Lagos State government, the Lagos State law, the criminal code law of Lagos has actually expunged bigamy.
Okay.
Maybe in other books, but the Lagos State has expunged it.
Okay.
Yeah, please continue with the explanation.
Yes, so what I am saying is this. You put the law in the books, the people are committing the crimes, and nothing happens. They get out of office, You charge them 205 charges and they are discharged on all counts. A judge comes to say, I jailed this man. Yet you say, thank you very much, we are going to discharge him. So it's not serving any purpose. But if you expunge it, I think that is negative. Because as I said, I am an incurable optimist. The day is going to come when some generation will want to do the right thing. Now they have no law.
So what are you saying?
So what I am saying is...
What's your contribution to the discussion of retaining it or removing it?
My position will be, leave it in the books. It's not harming anybody. Because it will become useful someday.
Well, I think, Claire, maybe if I may just comment here, what I get guests to be saying is that leave it, retain it in the books, but it is how to deal with the aftermath. In other words, when the immunity wears off. And on that score, he says he's optimistic that someday we will get a generation that will say, okay, now that your toga of immunity is off, we'll grab you, we'll prosecute you diligently, and if it is to keep you in jail, you go to jail. If it is to fine you, you get fined. Yes. Let's deal with this optimistic trajectory that you have raised.
Yes.
What, in your opinion, will be the building blocks towards attaining this very desirable state of affairs in our country where the law is diligently enforced?
One, when you begin to recognize excellence and diligence, I don't know whether this matter is sub judice, but I actually wept the day a young man convicted a big politician. I mean, I thought that was not possible. But hey, he convicted the guy. Good, it was upturned in the Supreme Court. Yes, but he did the best that he could. So that is why my position is, leave it in the books. Recognize excellence. Do what the kind of thing the National Orientation Agency should do. Create awareness and let people know. Let me give you this example. I was a troublesome young man. And then one day my mother called me. She said, I heard you talking to some people. You are making so much money. What is the trouble? I said, people are stealing the money belonging to Nigeria. He said, good. How is that your business? Save me, oh. You are my eldest surviving child. If somebody steals government's money, why are you making noise about that? Is it your money? We need to get people out of that kind of mentality. To say you steal our money, we are going to go after you. That is my hope that we will get there someday.
Well, sorry, let's pursue this point. Isn't it also the case? You find, yes, you said corruption or malfeasance is all over the place. Those in public office are encouraged by outsiders to do what they are doing. And those who are not in government, they also benefit. I mean, in fact, if you are in public office and you are not doling out welfare and goodwill, you are seen as a bad person. So there are societal pressures. And when people benefit, also, well, yes, I have my own. How do we begin to come out of this mentality so that I don't see, if you are in public office, for instance, I don't see you as an ATM where I will come to and begin to draw down cash?
Absolutely, I agree with you. That is the problem. And that is why you have found, I'm sure you have noticed, when anybody commits any malfeasance in public office and the federal government tries to go after them, their local communities do huge reception. A senator was removed from office for malfeasance. Oh, they took over a big primary school and welcomed him home. A minister was removed. His community... Yes, his community did a big reception. And that goes right to the bottom of the foundation of this country. Most people don't care what happens to Nigeria. They care what's happened to their own state of origin. So that is the difficulty that we have. If suspects will be harassed wherever they go, they will begin to get it. But as you said, the man steals a lot of money. In fact, if he does not steal a lot of money, they will call him a fool. So you are sitting there, why don't you steal our own? I recall when troops, security men, wanted to arrest a former governor. The number of people that came to protect this governor was so much that the commander of the troops said, look, let us withdraw. If we try to arrest this guy, we'd have to kill so many people. So when people are, so long as people are prepared to protect criminals, we are not going to get anywhere, immunity clause or not. But that is why I said there is a lot of hope, I believe, in institutions such as the National Orientation Agency that will make it a policy to so educate the people that if anybody steals their money, if anybody damages their, let me give you an example. When you travel on our roads, you see railings on the bridges. Some people go there, cut the railings, and sell them. And motorists are passing, and they don't say anything. They say, well, he's cutting railings belonging to the government. What? How does it concern me? Until we have this kind of reorientation that makes the average person say, oh, this vehicle is FGN. Why are you driving it that way? And you say, who the hell are you? I'm a Nigerian. This is FGN. You can't drive it that way. I'm going with you to your boss to say you are driving our car anyhow. Yes.
Well, let's take again a sociological view of this particular issue. All of this, Claire, I'm sure my colleague Claire will recall when we discussed the criminal justice system in Nigeria, removal from office,
yes.
And now we're discussing immunity clause, and we are seeing the sociology popping up, one more time. Look at it this way. Yes, the examples you have cited are very apt. A public officer is removed from office, or is he's jailed, or is convicted, his community will welcome him.
Yes.
Or otherwise, the gentleman is under pressure to face prosecution, and you see lavish space being taken out by way of advertisements, pressing for his case. And yet, in our various communities, it is in those communities a high offense to tamper with the resources of the community. You couldn't, any person who stole community property or the Commonwealth is either ostracized or dealt with. How come we do not now take that attitude from the community level to our national level? What do you think is missing?
I think this is what is missing. The people in the community speak one language. They probably have two major religions. But over and above that, they see themselves as a community. And they will go after anybody who tries to mess with property, things belonging to that community. But I am sorry. For 25 years, I was in the Nigerian army, in and out of war. I have not seen many people who place Nigeria above their tribe. They will tell you, but for my tribe, there is no way I will be in this army. Yeah, because they asked me to go to my local government. So I will fight and protect what gives me benefits. I don't know the meaning of Nigeria. There are people who have gone so high in government establishment simply because the state sponsored them. You cannot be a minister that is not sponsored by a state. How would you not protect what gives you benefits? Tell me what benefits Nigeria has given you. I am sorry. After 25 years of extremely dangerous operations in and out of war in Lebanon, in Sierra Leone and all of that, I have not seen Nigeria saying you have done anything well. In fact, that is why in my community, they are saying, remain in Lagos. You are in diaspora. Instead of coming home to help us, you are going, you are always talking, you are arresting people in Sierra Leone for coup d'etat. You are leaving us here. You will come and meet us one day. Forget about the mistake of 1914. Let's talk the real thing. So, the states are like, in some places, courts. But as I said, it's a simple thing. If an arrangement is not giving you any benefit, why will you defend it?
No, but let's again look at this. How can anyone possibly say that the Nigerian state is not a source of benefits? Let's face it. But let's say even from the issue of revenue.
Yes.
from the issue of revenue. We all virtually depend on the Nigerian state, as it were, the resources of the Nigerian state, no matter the constitutional provisions that bring that about.
Yes.
There is also strength in unity. There is also strength in numbers. You go out today, you are proud as a Nigerian.
Yes.
I mean, in virtually all circumstances. But you are unlikely, I'm not sure I know your community with the greatest respect, you are unlikely to go somewhere and they proclaim your community as your source. So that umbrella of the Nigerian nation provides huge benefits to us, but we often try to deny it when we are running to our ethnic enclaves. Is that the case?
Absolutely. Yes. You can say that, and I'm not trying to flatter you or just say something so that you can become friendly and not ask me difficult questions. That argument is absolutely correct. Everywhere I have been in the world and I come with a Nigerian passport, I get a certain level of respect. Now, but how many people appreciate what you have said? We want ministers. They say, go to the traditional ruler and let him bring minister. So the man depends on the traditional ruler. I have had to take my children to the village for them to be able to do anything. And they're asking me, Daddy, what is this? I said, well, that state is important. You don't put your state of origin, you are not going anywhere. And they said, but you are taking us into a bush. My friend, it is that bush that guarantees you anything, not the Nigerian state. So it is a problem that I believe we will overcome. Because if you look at voting patterns, all right, the young Nigerians are beginning to vote across tribal lines. They are beginning to vote across tribal lines. You say that man is Ijo or something, they tell you, my friend, that is the guy that I want to vote for. I remember in the last election, they were saying, no, it's secret. It was open, we were voting. And somebody said to a young man, why are you voting from that man? He's not from here. He said, that is the man I believe in. And that is why I'm saying, don't remove the clause. That day is coming.
All right.
Yes.
Yes. I'd just like to say a final word here, gentlemen. Outside this country, you're first and foremost a Nigerian.
Absolutely.
And I believe in the Nigerian entity.
Yes.
Any day, and I know that I have taken all I have today from Nigeria. So we must acknowledge that Colonel Ola Majoyegbe retired. Thank you very much for coming. I just like to point that out. We don't have much time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That I have benefited so much from Nigeria.
Yes, you have. But you
everywhere in the world. I'm not speaking for myself. I said I was speaking for the unlearned. This is how they see it.
Yeah.
I have been trained in so many countries in the world. I've been given so much money, but the ordinary people don't see how the country is benefiting them.
All right, I'm afraid that's the much we can take from this discussion. We would like to thank you. And Ola Majoyegbe is a retired colonel, a security consultant, but most importantly for us, he's a public affairs analyst. We thank you. We go on now to sports, and as the Nigeria Referees Association NRA resumed work after a 2-week down tool, the Nigeria Professional Football League continued yesterday with matches played across Nigeria. Here are the details.
Also, UEFA Champions League continued last night with matches in Groups E, F, G and H. The big match of the night saw Manchester City traveled to Germany to slug it out with the Bundesliga champions Bayern Munich. Other matches too were not without tight challenge. England's great football rivalry with Germany looks likely to go head-to-head over the right to stage the finals of the Euro 2020 tournament. European football's governing body, UEFA, is on Friday, tomorrow, due to name the 13 venues to hold the Pan-European Championship in 6 years' time. England are hopeful of being awarded the right to stage the semi-finals and final at Wembley, and Germany is also aiming to host the 3 matches at Bayern Munich's Allianz Arena. There are 19 countries bidding for the right to stage games, with the English FA and the Germany FA the only ones bidding to stage the last 3 matches package. England are also considering a bid to stage European Championship in 2028. They last held the tournament in 1996 when Germany won the title, beating England on penalties in the semi-final at Wembley. To tennis now, Japan's Kei Nishikori said on Wednesday that he aimed to replicate his 2012 victory in the Japan Open Tennis Championship, which takes place later this month. Nishikori returned earlier this month from New York, where his hopes of winning a maiden Grand Slam title were ruthlessly crushed by Croatia's Marin Cilic in the final. The 24-year-old became the first male player from Asia to advance to any Grand Slam final after beating Novak Djokovic in the semi-finals before losing to Cilic in the finals. Nishikori, however, took pride that he and Cilic, who knocked out Federer in the semi-finals, forged the first Grand Slam final without one of the big four, Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, Novak Djokovic or Andy Murray in 9 years. In the sports, the program continues.
Patricia Esabeluba talks about the ongoing fight against Ebola as ministers of East African nations converge on Nairobi, Kenya for a two-day conference on Ebola. And in Pakistan, Prime Minister Sharif is talking tough. Here is the copy from Patricia Esabeluba.
An East African Nations Ministerial Conference opened in Nairobi, Kenya on joint efforts to preparedness against Ebola virus disease. The two-day regional conference was attended by ministers in charge of transport, health, immigration, and East African Community EAC affairs from Burundi, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. Delegates from the organization's Intergovernmental Authority Development, World Health Organization, and African Union also attended the meeting. According to a statement issued by Kenya Ministry of Health, the objective of the meeting is to come up with a comprehensive response to the Ebola outbreak that has so far affected some West African countries. Hadija Kashachum, the Principal Secretary of Kenya's Ministry of Health, said that her country might close its borders if the situation worsens. 6 months into the worst Ebola outbreak in history, only 2 African nations, Ethiopia and Algeria, are adequately prepared to handle the potential arrival of the virus, said Dr. Benido Ipoma, a regional advisor to the World Health Organization. The Ebola virus has caused much havoc in West Africa, but the World Health Organization believes the worst is yet to come. The latest toll from the Ebola outbreak released last Friday by the World Health Organization indicated that over 2,400 people had died out of 4,784 confirmed cases. And in Pakistan, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, weakened by weeks of demonstrations calling for him to resign, threatened to clear a protest camp set up more than a month ago outside government offices in Islamabad's high-security red zone. Protesters led by Imran Khan, a former cricket star, and Tahir ul-Qadri, a firebrand cleric, have been locked in a bitter standoff with the government since mid-August, refusing to leave their camp until Sharif steps down. The protest leaders accused Sharif of rigging last year's election, which brought him back to power in a landslide. Pakistan's opposition leaders ordered thousands of their supporters this weekend to resist any government attempt to quash their protest, prolonging a political crisis in the coup-prone country. Finally, residents in the Gaza City neighborhood of Shijaira, devastated by 7 weeks of fighting between Israel and Hamas, reacted with mixed feelings to a new reconstruction deal agreed between the United Nations, Israel, and the Palestinian authorities. The stopgap deal announced by the UN Middle East envoy Robert Sherry to the Security Council on Tuesday aims to allow reconstruction work to begin in the war-torn Gaza Strip with UN monitoring of the use of materials. The World Bank said on Wednesday that the war will contribute to a reversal of 7 years of growth in Palestinian economy, now expected to shrink by nearly 4% this year. Gaza will see construction of as much as 15%, while a slight recovery in the fourth quarter could push growth in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, where the PA holds sway, to about 0.5%, the World Bank said in a report. It said the downturn was also a result of restrictions on the flow of goods in Gaza by Israel and neighboring Egypt, and a drop in the foreign aid to the PA. Egypt will host a donors conference on October 12th with the aim of raising reconstruction funds. And donor nations to the PA are due to convene on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly next week. Even without additional spending resulting from the war, the PA will face a financing gap due in part to a fall in donor aid of about $350 million this year, said the World Bank.
Thank you, Patricia Samit Luba. Now time to take a quick look at the weather details for today. That's it on today's edition of the program. Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be here same time tomorrow, and it will be a Friday session. We thank you for watching, and goodbye.
I also would like to thank you for tuning in to us today on Good Morning Nigeria, which came to you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I am Kingsley Osadolo. You'll have a nice day, and we'll see you tomorrow.